Well, all the small talk is all over.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of it's always nice to start and like check in and all that stuff, but the world doesn't have to see it for posterity. Um, what did you do on the weekend of 2023? So, um, I'm assuming Bert will hop in, but shall we begin? Does that sound good?
Sure.
Cool. So, Gail, are you on for minutes or is it Isaac?
I'm doing minutes, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
I have minutes started, but that's great. You go ahead, Gail.
It was on my calendar.
Oh, I thought it was me. So no, that's great. Excellent. I'll go do next
Yeah,
meeting.
next month, you lucky guy.
Oh, I know.
That's the
Very
nice thing
lucky.
about having Bert. We get to spread the wealth a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'll call us to order at 6:32. Um, and I'm guessing there's no public comment because there's no public. Sometimes we luck out and have a human being, but so we will promptly proceed to preparations for next week's public forum and hearing. So Gail, thank you for sending out the town announce.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, that was great. Um, and so, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts, but I think basically it's a big conversation. Um, so you probably also, I just started a very stripped down PowerPoint kind of thing, which I thought we could fill in um, sometime this week. But does that seem like a reasonable vehicle for doing it and approach for gathering information?
Yeah. Did you see the response uh from Chris? It looks like he supplied a slide deck that he uses
Oh, I
also
did.
that
Huh. Let me see. I think I might have missed that, which is weird.
Hmm.
A couple hours
Yeah,
ago.
it came
Oh, it's a couple
in.
hours ago. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
me
yeah,
feel
yeah.
good.
You were away.
Let's see. Inbox. I still don't see it.
It was at what time did he send it? 1:24 p.m.
Yeah. Huh. Let me see if you sent it to another email.
I think he sent it to the group bcac@shutesbury.org, and I think he sent it to shutesbury.michael, your
Huh.
email address specific
Yeah.
too.
Sure. Um, I don't see it at all. That's really weird. Huh. Hmm.
I'm gonna forward it to you right now.
Thank you. Well, that's helpful. So we can dump his thing in, which would be great. Um, I'll tell you when I get it, Nate. See how long it takes to get up the hill. It's going against gravity, so you never know. Um, and Nate, I'm assuming like just because you got this stuff in and you're so good at PowerPoint, you could probably just once you get time to focus, pop stuff into that part of it. I got it. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm absolutely happy to integrate that and provide suggestions to other components
Awesome.
of the slide deck. Um, I mean, if I'm drafting a slide deck with in a sort of a collaborative way, my my habit is to um, maybe have more than one version. Like if I want to do substantive suggestions to a slide, um, I might just like duplicate a slide and and go to town just because it's easier in the end to kind of hone it. Um, and then you don't have to maybe worry as much about if I changed a word here or there, or if I
Right.
move the image like too far left or right. So what I'm saying is if it's a mess, that's on purpose.
Okay.
Intentional chaos.
Duly noted. Uh, and it's not so, and it's the other thing you were saying, I think, was you might create duplicate slides. Is that what you're like?
But potentially, yeah.
Okay.
do a substantive suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds cool. And does the flow look right to you guys in terms of, I mean, I figured I would start just sort of say, what is this climate leader community program? Talk about what's required on the front end, and then go right into the specialized opt-in code, since we have to do the hearing first. I thought, we start out with that. Nate, you could kick it off, and then we could kick it off over to Chris. And if we get to 6:45 and we have a little bit of time, we can touch base on other stuff. The way the hearing works, you have to start it at that time. So I think we should be able to, I don't think we're going to go long. We might, depending on, there might be some questions we can use for filler, and then do the hearing. It's going to be really interesting to see how many people show up. I mean, last time I think we had like maybe 10 people max. 4, okay.
Is there
So
a minimum?
Plus us.
Is there a minimum attendance for this to actually fly, or we just have to do it?
we just need a quorum of us.
Oh,
So we
okay.
can-
But
so we
like,
can
I
call a
mean, I
meeting.
meant more like
No, I know.
community, yeah.
One can have a hearing and no one comes, it's still a hearing. So.
Got it.
I
Now,
like
if no
this.
one comes, like, do we still present to no one?
I think
We have
so.
to have it. Yeah,
Yeah,
we do,
'cause-
because it's gonna be,
Oh, recorded. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
recorded. It's gonna have to be.
Oh.
And we got
So-
Chris there. We're paying Chris's exorbitant salary, so.
Yeah. So my only note was on the second slide in the second paragraph, like the second line, is to kind of foreground the what does this do for us, right? So it provides tools and resources like access to grant funding, etc. And there's in Chris's slide deck, slide 10 breaks out like exactly because I think like we need to get buy-in for like attention. It's like what like really the question is what does this do for me and how do we foreground that? And then once they do, they might be more amenable to listen to, oh well maybe I was against the special opt-in code, but seeing as how it'll give us access to this kind of funding for the town, that maybe I'm a little more agreeable to it.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. I mean, it's probably along those same lines helpful to realize that although technically we could approve 1 and not all 3, we don't get into the program unless we do a package deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's a helpful reminder for people because, none of this stuff is self-evident. But I think that's great. Yeah, I mostly on my end this weekend it was like I just have to create the container because I didn't have the brain space to do it. But I thought if I didn't create that, we wouldn't have a process. Um, and
the
I think,
one,
yeah,
oh, sorry. Yeah, the one question I have for the agenda is that Chris Mason had said that he intended to reach out to one of the uh, code specialists. So you'll recall that the last time we had organized a presentation for the town that Chris presented, but he had a code specialist with him. So that's something that I'll try to clarify early.
okay,
And if need be, we can kind of adjust the 2 and 3 as appropriate.
yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I mean, it's definitely value add to have someone who knows the details.
Mhm.
So I think the only thing to keep in mind, like if you end up going back and forth with them, is we just have to adjust the end by 6:45. So it could be that you say, okay, we have this much that Nate's gonna do and this much that DOER is gonna do. So Michael, you got 1 slide, and then we'll pick up the rest later. So
Okay.
however we have to adjust. I mean, the public meeting police are not gonna come down on us, but nonetheless, that's the appropriate way to do it. So,
Let's do it.
cool. Gail, do you have any observations or suggestions at this
No,
point?
looks good. And that follows what we discussed at our last meeting, the general outline of events.
Yeah. Cool. And I would say as we, develop it, if anyone has time and inclination, just jump in. I mean, I think we can all edit this thing to our satisfaction. So, if we can have shared pride of ownership. Um, and I think other than, so we got the presentation, we got definitely DOER coming and maybe DOER plus one. Got the agenda. I'm thinking, Gail, I'm wondering if we should send out a reminder like Thursday or Friday to see, just to sort of maybe get a bump in attendance to 5 or 6 people.
Okay, changed from the initial one or shortened up or,
Uh, it could be almost the same, I think. I mean, you
well,
could
they had
maybe
our
just,
reminder.
yeah, yeah. I think whatever you think is appropriate, but my guess is there's always people who
Like a
don't pay
week from
attention.
today?
Uh, well, the hearing's on Monday, so
They should get it before the weekend before they get lost in,
yeah,
so
yeah,
Thursday,
Thursday or Friday, either way, whichever. Yeah, today's Tuesday, so Thursday or Friday would make sense. Whatever works for you schedule wise.
either.
Okay. Um, is there anything else we're missing? We don't need handouts because we're doing the PowerPoint. You don't have to feed anybody because it's virtual. Um, there's definitely a benefit and simplification to doing it online, gotta
Yep.
say.
Yep.
And I think in terms of, I was thinking about this in terms of minutes. So I guess Isaac, if you're on, the only thing I would, and this works out well. So it will technically be a meeting, but I think we don't have to have detailed meetings during the presentation because we have the documentation of the presentations. The thing that we sort of have to document really is the hearing. So it could be, like what will end up happening is at 6:45, I'll move to open the hearing. And then the hearing will open. At
But
that point,
this is not a committee meeting. We don't need minutes.
for a hearing, you do.
Minutes for a public hearing?
Yeah, you have to document what people said. It's a, it's the back end of the asking them what they think.
Their responses, okay.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly just, the hearing opens at 6:45. Whoever asks questions, you sort of capture their questions. I mean, it'll be recorded and all,
Good
but
thing it's gonna be recorded, yeah, right.
yeah.
So
And
really,
it's
I
not
don't have to
really,
I don't have to document anything about the presentation. It's really just about the interaction with the public, like their questions and the responses to those questions.
yeah. And, within reason, like it doesn't have to be legalistic, but enough so that,
Yeah.
someone would say, I said X and you didn't respond to X. So, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Got it. Okay, cool. I can
Cool.
do.
Great. Yeah. Anything else? It seems too easy, but
Been here before.
yeah,
Nothing to
okay,
it but to do it. Yeah.
exactly. So I'll move us on to EV charger recommendation. And I think, was it yesterday, Isaac, that you sent out your
No, I
piece?
sent it this morning.
Okay. A long time ago.
So I know, forever ago. Um, so met with Eric of the select board, and we had a discussion. I kind of like went over like the situation and kind of we brainstormed questions for an FAQ. I use those questions as a guideline to the questions that the questions that I put in the FAQ. And then I um, once the questions that I got from like the brainstorm with Eric, I called Nick Valori of East Coast Renewables to kind of get like really hone in on the exact information. Um, so I put it together and then I sent it to him for review just to make sure everything is accurate. And he offered to in his response email to come to come to an ECAC meeting or to come to a select board meeting to present in person to respond to any questions.
Who is this,
So
please?
I'm sorry.
Who is this, please?
Nick Valore, Valore,
He's the
From,
contact for
from
ECR.
ECR, yeah. So yeah, he was very kind to offer that. If if we want to take advantage of that, I can work out, I can, send him an email or, whatever. Um, yeah, I think that's the long and short of it. So the one thing I was thinking about was, I keep thinking about, so I'll go back because Eric kept mentioning the new library as a potential site, even though I know Marianne is not interested in it. Um, so I'm just going to remove that from the FAQ because it seems like a moot point with the requirements. And then I was looking at, the state is going to ban the sale of new gasoline powered cars by 2035 to meet the 2050 climate agreement, the net zero. And I don't, I know that Nick will probably push us to ask for additional things that we don't think we need right now, but I don't know. I'm very curious to see like with you know, if this ban on a sale, like, I mean, it's in California and Massachusetts currently, but, I mean, so you could go to New Hampshire, you could buy a new car there, I'm sure, you go to Connecticut until they ban them. But it seems like, being forward thinking, it might make sense to try to entertain or, dream up other areas that we might want to, and present that to the select board. But right now, I mean, what we've got is behind the town hall at the elementary school and the old library site. So, talking to Eric, he was saying that the old library site might be a place where they relocate the police department. Um, so if there were installed there before the police department was there, then they would be pre-existing, and it would make it a little bit easier for them to eventually transition to electric vehicle if that were agreed upon. Um, we can also include the fire station behind the fire station because, the chief is amenable to it. He's not like gung ho about it, but he's not against it. Um, and we're not currently going for the fleet grant option where we would own the site. We would own it. We would be responsible for the $1,200 annual maintenance fees per charging station, because it's six per port and there are two ports on each charging station. But we can't so Eric asked if we could buy it out eventually, and that there wasn't a real good answer for that. But what would be an option would be to just have a municipal credit card that the fleet users would use for payment, and those bills would go to the town. So the town would pay for it, but it would also be accessible to the public when they weren't like when the municipal vehicles weren't parked there. Um, so I mean those are just some thoughts about, I don't
I don't
know,
want to get
like yeah,
I don't want to get too much into the substance again, but you just made me think of something. So like just say in 10 years, the
yeah.
technology is in place and electric cars are here. Um, if the town said, we're tired of paying for these things, we want to own it. Basic is there like we're essentially leasing this the thing from ECR, right?
No, we're not. No. ECR owns it and they will do a between 25 and 50% profit share with us. So basically what happens is they manage it. They're responsible for all the repairs, all the
Right.
maintenance for these units. And they're forecasting that these will be money making, these will be money making opportunities in the future, right? I
I get, well, here,
clarified.
let me
Yeah.
jump in because where I was going was like, just say the town said we wanted our own.
Yeah.
Is there a mechanism for saying ECR, take your toys and go away? We're going to put our own in?
Um, I guess I can ask him if what if we if there if it comes to a point where we would like to remove them,
Yeah,
what's the process? Is there a process for that? I don't know if there's any contractual obligation to have them remain in town in perpetuity. Um, so I can ask that question.
okay. Yeah. I
It
think,
seems like an important question because, the conversation that we're having now is about sort of like scarce real estate for where these things, are viable within the town. And yeah, that end of life piece, um, it would be important to nail that down in, before just so that we can anticipate that. Yeah.
Wait, how would
Okay,
that come
so
about? The town would say, we've had enough, take all your stuff out and go away,
yeah, well, it could be,
no cost?
well, who knows what 10 years will be? Like it might be that we say we want our own, we want to upgrade the technology because now we're at level 7 chargers and they're really cheap. And we're just going to own them and
there's another
take
grid or
advantage of that
whatever.
situation.
So, I mean, we could own them now. It's just the liability is on the
Yeah,
town for
yeah.
like, maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So, who would maintain that? Who would be responsible for that? Would it be somebody on the ECAC? Would it be somebody on the select board? Um,
Yeah. I
to
mean, it's,
respond to that
yeah,
stuff.
I don't think I would advocate for it, but it just seems like at some point the factors could shift enough that it would get it would get raised. Um, yeah,
We could build in, though, a stipulation that in X years forward, we evaluate use, cost to the budget, and have an opportunity to reevaluate having them in town or our ownership, depending on what we find on history.
that's a good idea.
Sure, but I guess to clarify, there is no cost for the town
Once they're
because
installed,
I'm sorry?
once they're installed,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. And there's no cost for the installation either. It's the grant, like the level 2 grant that's offered through, National Grid and the East Coast Renewable is donating all the additional labor cost or whatever there is for the install. Yeah, so if they own it, they're on the hook for any costs, and basically there's an accounting at the end of the year, and if there are any profits, then they will split the profits with the town, either somewhere between 25 and 50% based on the location and all that stuff. So that's their prerogative to set the rates, but that's the range of profit sharing. So there's no real liability if us owning it would only mean that the only benefit for us owning it um, would be for us to recoup all of the profits from it. And I don't really see this as a profit-making venture. I see this as an opportunity to provide infrastructure for, future carbon neutrality.
And we don't know what the costs are of maintenance either,
Yeah,
or
Well,
repair.
yeah,
well, we do. I mean, we don't know what repair costs are, but we know that there's an annual maintenance fee of $1,200 per charging station, which is 600 per port. That is run by a third-party company that will come and do the annual maintenance. And if there are repairs, the same third-party company, which you would contract with, would provide those repairs and just send you a bill that you would be liable for. But if ECR owns it, then they are the ones getting the bills. And I said to him, hey, like at the end of the year, if there are no profits and, ECR takes a loss, are we responsible to split that loss with you? And he's like, no, we eat it. Like that's basically kind of the cost of doing business.
And they
So
just keep eating it for as long as we stay on?
that's 100% right. Yeah, there's from like he's,
Why would they do that?
well, it's a long game. Like this is a
Yeah,
gamble.
yeah.
A lot of it is like I think it's kind of that scheme where what was it, solar, whatever, the solar companies would come and install the solar panels on the roof. They would own them. They would get all the recs and they would get all the incentives and basically mitigate their end of the cost. So like really their their only their only sunk cost is the labor, and then the speculation for future profits. They want to be like, why they push for as many as they can get is that is more opportunity for profit in the market. It's not like we have to prove that we
Right.
have X number of vehicles that would make it profitable. The profit sharing is based on the location and use, and that would be set up in the contract. So it's between 25 and 50%. Go ahead.
And
Yeah.
does the contract include, they're giving us an annual report on cost, profit, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So as you noted in the in your edits, we will have access to their financial records,
Correct.
so we can audit their claims on the
No,
profit.
but different from audit, are they going to be required to give us a report at the end of the year? Us and the
Uh,
town,
yes, I would assume so, but
and we build that into a contract that we get
sure.
such a report.
Let me
Because that
shift
would give
gears
us
just.
a year a marker by the year to assess use and costs going forward. We can look back and see what the history is.
Yeah. Will we be given an annual report at end of fiscal year, or would we need to request access to financial records and figure out? All right. And then at some point, can we decide to
Decide to buy it
own
out, yeah.
the charging stations?
I guess the one thought I have, and then I want to shift gears a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah,
but
sure, sure.
um, like, so Leverett has an MLP that's doing broadband and electricity, and I
Hmm.
recently talked to Otis, and Otis has got the same thing, and so it could be, in 10 years, if we can figure out, I don't know what the mechanism is. I'm actually going to talk to the Otis person next week, but like it'd be interesting in 10 years if we had our broadband MLP also maybe doing solar, maybe we have charging stations, and sort of figure out, because the only thing that makes revenue really in town is broadband right now.
Mhm.
So one could think of it as there are revenue generating opportunities. Um, if I don't expect this, but all the people driving to UMass, if they all have EVs and they get off 202 and they don't stop at the top of 202 and Route 2, then there's not much in between. So maybe they have to check in.
Oh, because wasn't that a question about qualifications for the climate action leader? Wasn't there a whole sticking point where you couldn't have an MLP or something like that? But
That was for community choice aggregation.
oh, community choice aggregation. So that
Yeah,
would be a moot point, right? Because that
yeah,
was it, right? Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just sort of thinking, like in 10 years,
Hmm.
everything. Who knows? I mean, they
Yeah.
might say, if you can do it as a municipality, we encourage you to do it.
Hmm.
It's hard to know.
Sure.
I think the thing I wanted to shift was just in terms of process. Like, I don't know, did Eric, I mean, I've been thinking the next step is for us to go maybe with Nick to the select board
Sure.
and do a presentation so that we can actually, because they have to sign the contract. Like,
Yeah.
there's a point at which us talking about it doesn't really help move things forward.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Eric had an opinion or if you have an opinion based on talking to Eric and Nick.
I think that we're ready to go to the select board with the information. Now, I'll clarify the following questions that came up in meeting, and this is the wording that I will use. I just want to get like any edits on that, and it's in the one sheet right now. If we wish to have the charging stations in town, if we do not wish to have the charging stations in town, what would be the process for removal? And I'll get details on that. At some point, can we decide to own the charging stations? And then will we be given an annual report at the end of fiscal year, or would we need to request access to financial records and figure it out, like, do our own accounting kind of situation?
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And that's in the one doc now?
Yeah, those are three
Okay,
in at very end of it. And
okay, I'll crib from that for the minutes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I will put yeah, I'll try to call him tomorrow and get the info. I guess next steps would be to get, on the calendar for the next select board meeting, or like get some options for opportunities for the select board meeting, and see what Nick's availability would be. Um, and see what works, and just get it on the docket to have the conversation. We could provide the one sheet in advance for the select board to go over and review and see if there are any additional questions that might come up in the intervening time.
Yeah, I'm thinking, so we're on March 11th now.
Mhm.
I, I don't actually, Gail, I don't remember. They just started something with the warrant tonight, the select board. It wasn't, I don't think substantive, but I saw something about signing something about the warrant.
But they're just collecting data.
Yeah.
It's not sealed
So my sense is that like so April 26th is town meeting. So
or not.
what do you mean or not?
They're talking about changing the date.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, geez. I can't do that now.
Well,
Huh.
part of the question.
I already changed the hotel reservation so I could get back in time for
Yeah,
town meeting.
they can't do that. That's crazy. Um, if they push it back, that'll just screw things up. Um, they should bite the bullet and then change it afterwards. So let's assume they don't change anything. That really sucks to hear. I was thinking, well, if it's April 26th, we should maybe wait till beginning of May because then they'll have brain space. It's either that or do it really soon, it seems like.
I mean,
'Cause they'll
really
get,
soon might be better. I think, just to get the ball rolling, because a lot
yeah,
of this depends on the, it depends on the availability of the incentives as they currently exist. Like that's
that's
the
true.
language he keeps using. Um, So I mean, as soon as the meeting happens, there's still going to be some deliberation. I
Right.
doubt very much that, at that meeting it'll be the select board meeting was like, "Yep, we got it. We'll sign right now with you." Like it'll probably be like, May before they convene and actually make a decision, instead of meeting in May, getting information, and not like, maybe getting a decision to sign a contract
Right.
until June or July, you know.
That makes
So,
sense. I
so
get
if we
that.
wanted it to be like a actual possibility, let's try to go
Okay.
sooner rather than later. And I can email Nick, right now with a date to see if it works, and then I can get back to you ASAP.
I don't know, they start meeting more frequently going into town meeting, but it's always going to be on a Tuesday, at least that's an assumption. So if you want to just float to him, the next maybe 4 or 5 Tuesdays, so
Okay.
18th to
Now, are they
25th.
so so the so and that's a guaranteed select board meeting night, the 18th, 25th, and the
Yeah.
1st?
Well, it's not guaranteed because I don't always post it ahead, but let's see. Gabe is much better. So right now,
She's got several
the
posted
the
ahead though.
25th, there's nothing on the 18th, there's the 25th, and then there's nothing in April.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to see if we could get on the calendar for the 25th? Like I'll
Sure.
see if he's available, and then
Yeah.
I'll email you right back and then see what
Okay.
would you have an idea of like what time it would be?
Mm,
Between 5 and
I
6:30.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah. And once she's available, if you let me know, then I can
Yeah.
let Eric and Gabe know. Just I mean, we don't all have to be there, but does that if we did it on the 25th, does that work for you, Gail, and me?
Yeah. The 25th. Let me look at my calendar. Sorry, one second. Alright. 25th.
March 25th, not April.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, that works for me. So I'll
Okay.
say I'll just put it on my calendar right now. So between 6 and 7:30, is that right?
No,
Yeah.
5 and 6:30.
Oh, 05 and 6:30.
The earlier, the better.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a concrete next step. And if he can't do the 25th, we can explore whatever the next
2 weeks after
possible
that.
April. Yeah. So probably, I'm guessing it would be 25th is there, so it'd be the 8th. Yeah, it'd be the 8th, which is still, that's not terrible in terms of town meeting conflict. Okay, cool. Isaac, thank you for all of this. We're trudging ahead.
Coming together nicely.
Yeah, yeah. So Nate, I think you're up.
Sure, yeah, this is a CCA update. So the public comment period for the plan, I think it concluded. The 30-day period was reached on Friday, just this past Friday. And to my knowledge, there has not been any feedback on I know, on the plan. So the last time we met, there was some question about what does it sort of what's an indicative timeline, now that we've reached this point. And so I went back to what is ultimately, it's a revised timeline that Colonial put together after the state updated its process for approving this program, and I circulated that. I could share the PDF on the screen, or does everyone
That would be good.
kind of have it? Okay, let me see if I can just. I'm going to send a request to the moderator.
I could change that before I hang up.
Yep, I got it. Okay, so I'll make this big. Can everyone see that pretty well?
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Color coding.
Yeah. And of course we have been moving along this timeline, and the dates are no longer in effect, but the sequence is still good. So you see that DOER consultation. We did that. We went to the select board to gain their approval to even post the plan for public comment. And we were able to achieve that, posted it. And now the next step is a select board vote of plan acceptance. So our next move is to go back to the select board with this document, and I can just double check with folks to make sure that no comments came in through other sort of avenues potentially. But
The town admin would have been receiving comments. Is that the?
potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nate, could you check with Colonial, like if there were no comments and the select board approved a plan that's now unchanged?
Yeah.
Not having to go back to the select board for them to approve the identical thing would be really nice to avoid.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that does make sense, but I wonder, I would kind of want to confirm with select board that was their understanding at the time, because it's possible that we framed that vote to them as, can you approve our putting it up for public comment?
Right.
And I just don't recall. You might recall.
Different from them accepting it as.
That would be a different vote, I think.
Yeah.
But if if that's what they had in mind, or they're fine with it, that might cut the mustard. I'm not sure.
We,
Okay,
we
well,
still should get a select board voted acceptance of the plan, though.
yeah, I think you make a good point that, I mean,
Even if it's the
it,
same thing, they,
yeah. And I mean, so if we're able to, we could just, have ECAC presence on the 25th. Um, Try not to outstay our welcome with too many things, but this should be a very short agenda item unless they think of
yep,
new novel questions, but
yep,
we've already been through it.
Agreed.
yep.
Agreed. Yeah. And at that point, I think Colonial, well, DPU via Colonial might require like a formal um, documentation, like minutes, like a
Right.
authorized minutes potentially. But then uh, it's in Colonial's hands to do the stuff that we have engaged them to undertake on our behalf, and I think things will move. That 120 days will that clock will start ticking um, shortly thereafter.
That'll get us towards the end of July, it seems like.
Yes, and I'm just uh, going to the next page because I think the thing that interests us most is this piece about supply bidding and Colonial's meeting with the town to discuss program options, and this is where we um, can articulate what options we would like to see Colonial go out to the market to get notional bids for. But that really is the kind of the next part of this. It's what's probably a fairly straightforward select board vote, and then passing the ball to Colonial to interface with DPU on our plan acceptance.
Can you remind me that the price setting in the market happens twice a year, right?
I think that is correct. Yeah.
Well, that's at least the way National Grid does it.
Yeah. So I
Is
think,
that true?
once we get it back from DPU, it seems like you're having a conversation with Colonial to say, when's the best time to find out what the options are and what they cost? Because it sounded like, if I remember correctly, that they
They
want to
change it.
minimize the time between when they find out information and the next changing of pricing happens.
Yeah.
April and October.
You're looking at minutes or something?
No, from my own records.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I keep track of what the rates are and when they change.
I'm so impressed, Gail.
It's spreadsheet stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
By the utility?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's posted every month. They
Yeah.
post the rate every month.
Yeah.
cool. So
All
I
right.
think,
So
so
at
what I
what
will
point
do,
do we ask people in town what they want to see among options?
Yeah.
I,
Um,
Do we as ECAC tell Colonial, we want these 6 options, go price them, and then take that to the town?
yeah.
it feels like, so if, let's just say that 120 days gets us to the end of July, early August, that once Colonial gets DPU's response, then I think it's a matter of talking to Colonial and figuring out how do we do this process whereby we maximize engagement of residents and also strategically try to time it with the market rate so we get good, you know, accurate information. Because I don't. It's a great question, Gail. Like we could ask people what they want and then go tell Colonial this is what we heard, or we can get reality checks and Colonial might have different ideas beyond what folks in town are thinking about. In which
Right.
case, we could float those and people can comment on them. Like I don't think when we had the conversation um, with the DPU folks and they were talking about going to other states, I don't necessarily think people in town would say, "Oh, I want to try to spur clean energy markets in Montana." But you know, if Colonial could package that and it was interesting to people, maybe they would be interested. So I think it's a conversation with us and them, like an actual conversation to figure out her because you know, like I think about the Amherst, Pelham, Northampton folks. I remember reading in the paper when they rolled out their options, and they were very vanilla. I mean, there were sort of like three versions. It was, you know, a cheaper version, a little greener version, and then something with a little bit extra. But it was nothing. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Um, it seems like we want to have that conversation to figure out, okay, what's the most creative, broadest way to think about it, and then get some feedback about what people think.
I recall from their presentation also, like I'm not sure what the level of granularity is possible. Like there may be some like somewhere we can say, we don't want, solar that, we don't want solar energy that involves clear cutting of forests or like, non, new solar arrays that will take out forests. Um, I mean, it's great to ask, but it may be like they just have the three vanilla options or, and six might be a little too much, right? Like it's,
Oh, I
uh,
think,
yeah,
yeah, I think
yeah,
six is too many.
yeah,
But we
No,
could,
no,
or we could ask residents, give them six. I think ultimately the products that people are picking from, it sounds like Colonial said, you know, three or four is probably the right mix, but which ones they are, hard to know. Sorry, Gail, what are you gonna say?
I would just encourage though that we have a broader set of options available than we actually end up with. So we can ask the super vanilla and ask the super green max, knowing that folks are going to choose somewhere in the middle because of cost to anyone, but that we make those available.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If nothing else,
A
we get
full range
reality
of,
checks.
a full range of choices, yeah.
Okay, well, I think, so the next discrete step is for me to talk to Gabe about scheduling the select board approving the plan now that public comment is over. And if we're lucky, maybe we'll do everything on the 25th. We can do both items, which would be pretty cool.
And then once that's approved, we can go to DPU. Is that go to Colonial to go to DPU? Is that it? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We get to sit back for a little while. Let them earn their hundredths of a cent. Um, so, okay. You guys up for doing the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So why don't we do the one that was last month first?
February 11th.
Yeah, I'm clearing
I
up my,
move we approve the minutes from February 11th.
a second,
I'd like to
anyone?
second. I would like to second that.
Nate seconded. Okay.
Any discussion?
I received one, a letter T that I needed to add to, to the minutes, which
Mateo's name.
yeah, which I can address and um, right away.
That's highly deficient minute taking, I'll point out.
Yeah,
Fisk. Fisk.
yeah.
Cool.
I'll keep working on it.
Okay.
Okay. So hearing there's no more discussion, we'll vote. So Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
Isaac? Nate?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So those are
Okay.
officially approved. So, and then Gail discovered that minutes that I took in June 4th, 2024, we didn't approve. So I want to make a motion to consider those. Isaac, can't hear you.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2024 joint meeting with the select board.
Cool. Second? Great, thanks, Isaac. Any discussion?
Who seconded?
Isaac.
Isaac.
Okay, hearing
Were there any
none.
comments or amendments or suggested changes?
Looks like no. So, hearing none. Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
Isaac? Nate?
Aye.
I am an aye.
Unanimous. Okay.
Okay, so in terms of dates, which is always our last thing of business, we got our forum next week and public hearing on the 17th. And then depending upon what we hear back from Nick and the select board, we could maybe meet on the 25th. If we do, we can confirm that on email. If we don't, then I think we can figure out if we're going to the 8th or not. And my gut is like those are the primary activities going to the select board. So if we don't want to max ourselves out, we should probably want to meet before town meeting just to sort of touch base on our own. But that doesn't have to be a long meeting. It can just be focused on town meeting prep. Assuming that we are meeting on April 26th. So does that logic hold for you guys?
They've wiped the date off the website.
Ay, 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 ay.
TBD.
Oh no. Don't do it.
In
I'm
lack
actually,
of in absence of information, we can only move forward with the last date that we had on the calendar. So, I
yes.
mean, the Tuesday before that would be April 15th, which is tax day. So,
Yeah. Well, let's find out. I'm going to email them just, I got an email anyway, so I'll just sort of put a pitch in for, hotel rooms and travel plans and all that kind of stuff. So, because it's just the second Saturday of school vacation week, right?
And that's one of the reasons they want it moved. If
Yes.
people will be out of town and blah, blah, blah.
Okay, well, we can't control that. Keep, someone should, Gail, if you find out, you can shoot us an email. If I find out, I'll shoot anyone an email. Anyone here is
So-
on the street.
So we're not setting a next meeting or we're,
I think we know next Monday, we're gonna do the public hearing
okay.
and the forum, and then we can still, if they don't have town meeting on the 25th, on the 26th, we can still meet on March 25th for the CCA vote and the EV charger discussion, if in fact Nick can do it. So I think that would be the plan going forward, regardless of when town meeting is. It just makes planning for town meeting a little bit more difficult, but it is what it is. So, anyone want to move to adjourn? Okay, thank you, Isaac. Anyone want to second that motion?
Sure, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any last words before we adjourn? Okay. Nate, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gail,
Aye.
Isaac, and I'm an aye. Good meeting. See you guys on Monday, and I'll see you online with our edits and stuff.
Great.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Thanks. Bye.
Good meeting. Bon appetit.
I'm gonna play with the settings.